Yo, hello kittens. In this video we're going to be doing a Neuvillette weapons tier list. As always, we're just going to be ranking the catalysts in the game based around which are the best for Neuvillette. So first of all, we're going to do the ranking standards. We're going to see Neuvillette's weapons requirements. So Neuvillette is going to be a main DPS and it's also going to scale off with HP. So still probably the usual DPS things, except he's not going to use attack. He's going to use HP instead. The first priority is definitely still like crit rate, crit damage and stuff like that. All of these weapons are going to be pretty good. Any charge attacks buffs are going to be much appreciated. That's like the second priority. Third priority is HP. He scales off with HP, but you're not really going to need that out of your weapon. You're going to get HP from a lot of other places like your artifacts and stuff like that. But HP on a weapon is still going to be pretty good. And finally, some elemental mastery and energy recharge are going to be cool. Even though I feel like you're probably just going to need them from your substats a little bit. But in some weapons, they might be worth it. So yeah, that's pretty much about what you're going to need for a weapon for Neuvillette. Now let's rank the catalyst. Alright, so starting off with the 3-star weapons, we have the magic guide. It's going to give you elemental mastery, and then the passive is actually quite decent. It's going to give you damage bonus if the enemies are affected by Hydra or Electro, which is probably what's going to happen with Neuvillette. So at refinement 5, I would say it's going to be a decent weapon. Again, I wouldn't really say use it, but it's going to be decent. So I'll put that as C tier. Thrill entails HP, but then the passive is just a buff and passive. It's not really going to help Neuvillette at all, and he's a selfish main DPS, so it's not really a good weapon. Just for the HP, I put that as C tier 2. Other than that, it's not really usable. For the rest, otherworldly story, it's just energy recharge, so it's D tier. Emerald orb, elemental mastery, it's D tier 2. Twin nephrite, crit rate, a little bit of crit rate, but the passive is just attack, so it's pretty much useless. I would put that as C tier 2. Ember's bed, elemental mastery, is going D tier. So now moving on to 4-star weapons, we have the Favonius Codex. It's gonna give you energy recharge and then more energy from the passive. He needs energy, but it's definitely gonna, fuck up your damage a lot if you use this weapon. So I definitely wouldn't really recommend it. I'd just say it's D tier, honestly. It's definitely something you should pass on, even though it's gonna eliminate energy problems, but it's not really worth it. We have the Widsith. It's gonna give you crit damage as a substat, which is super good. And then the passive is the random, theme song, the Widsith passive. So it's either gonna give you attack, elemental damage, or elemental mastery. The elemental damage buff is gonna be super good. The elemental mastery buff is gonna be like meh, but pretty decent. The attack buff is just gonna be like straight up useless. The thing is with this weapon, again, it's very inconsistent. And even in my last video when I did the Risley guide, I've seen a lot of people like saying the Widsith is gonna be better and stuff like that. I don't really remember quite well, but this weapon is just not consistent. I really don't see why people like it. Even in like calculations and stuff like that, you're gonna see a lot with like quote unquote average buff, which is just not a thing. Like if we did an average buff here, it's gonna be like always having elemental damage bonus and stuff like that. But the thing is, that's just not gonna happen. It's very inconsistent. You're gonna have a buff a third of the time, like 10 seconds for each 30 seconds. And then in those 10 seconds, you're gonna gain just a random buff out of 3. So you can literally go like a whole abyss floor without a buff. You can get like the attack buff and it's useless, which means this weapon is like almost with no passive. It's the same thing with like the Black Cliff, for example, but a lot of people hate on the Black Cliff, even though in my opinion it's just easier. You just have to kill an enemy, which is a lot of times available. But a lot of people like to say it's inconsistent, but they're literally the same weapon, like same base stats, same everything, just 2 very inconsistent passives. But for some reason people like the Widsith and just hate the Black Cliff. So yeah, enough ranting about the Widsith. I'm just explaining why I don't think it's good, or at least as good as people make it out to be. Just for the crit damage substat and the small chance that you're gonna gain the elemental damage buff, I would put that at B tier, probably lower B tier, but I genuinely don't think you should use this weapon. But yeah, sacrificial fragments, elemental mastery, and it's just the sacrificial passive just to reset your elemental skill. We don't really need that. I would say it's D tier. Royal Grimoire, attack, and just the bullshit passive is D tier 2. You have the Solar Pearl, crit rate as a substat, which is super good. By the way, again, base attack doesn't really matter in these weapons. He doesn't need attack. So yeah, I just forgot to mention that. But yeah, the passive is going to increase your elemental skill, bursts, and normal attacks. Elemental bursts and skill, cool. Normal attacks is not really going to be using his normal attacks at all. So it's not really good. And it's not going to help out your charge attacks damage. So, it's not really much help. But I would say it's still pretty decent for the crit rate substat. I'd say it's also B tier. We have Mappa Mare, elemental mastery, and then when you do an elemental reaction, you're going to gain elemental damage bonus. Meh, I mean, mean, it's kind of meh. It's pretty much the same thing as like the magic guide. The magic guide even gives more elemental mastery, so we'll just again put it as C tier. We have the Black Cliff. Again, it's pretty much the same thing as the Widsith. Well, the passive with the Black Cliff is useless for Neuvillette. Even if you have the passive, it's gonna give you just attack, which is completely useless. So it's worse than the Widsith, but it's close in my opinion. So I just put it lower than the Widsith, but they're definitely in the same tier, just for the crit rate substat or the crit damage. I have Perception, just attack, and then some random damage. It's going D tier. Wine and Song, energy recharge, then attack. Probably not good too. I would say D tier 2. Frost Barrier, just attack, and then some extra damage. D tier 2. Dodoko Tails, attack, and then it's gonna increase your charge attacks damage by a little bit. It's gonna be 32% at Refinements 5, I think. So it's quite a lot actually. It's not a little bit, but the rest of the weapon is not good. It's just attack and more attack from the passive. So I would put it as like C tier. I would say higher C tier. Wouldn't really recommend using, but it's not too bad. Hakushin Ring, energy recharge, and then just buffing the rest of your team. Probably I would say D tier 2. Outsworn Eye, attack, and then energy recharge, D tier. Wandering Even Star, elemental mastery, and then just attack from your elemental mastery, D tier. Fruit of Fulfillment, energy recharge, and then elemental mastery, probably C tier. We have the Sacrificial Jade, crit rate as a passive, which is pretty good, and then the passive is going to increase your HP and elemental mastery. You're probably going to have a good uptime on the effect. You just got to be off field for 5 seconds, then it's going to last for 10 seconds, the buff, and yeah, it's going to give you a lot of good things like crit rate, elemental mastery, and also HP. So especially with refinements, it's a very good weapon. Honestly, I would put it at like A or S tier. I would say it's like higher A tier if you have it less than R5, and at Refinements 5 is probably going S tier. I would, you know, I'll put it at S tier. I'd say it's S tier material just because there are not really many weapons that can compete. So I'd say it's definitely S tier material. We have Flow and Purity. It's just attack substat, and then elemental damage bonus from the passive. The elemental damage bonus is cool, but it's not really much. So I would say it's probably a C or lower B tier weapon. I'd put it at like higher C tier. It's either one of the two, but maybe R5 it's like B tier, and then R1, R2 is like higher C tier. We have Ballad of the Boundless Blue. It's gonna give you energy recharge, which like we can take that, it's usable. And then the passive is basically just gonna increase your charge and normal attacks. Obviously charge attacks damage increase will be pretty good. I would say it's pretty decent. The charge attacks damage bonus is pretty much the only thing you're gonna need. You're gonna need some energy recharge, but that's like, you know, not that important. So yeah, it does provide good things, but not really as much. So I'd say it's an average weapon. I just put it at B tier. We have Skyward Atlas, super high base stack, which we're not gonna need. Also attack, which we're not gonna need. The passive is just a small damage bonus increase. That's cool, but it's definitely pretty small. And then just some extra damage from the passive, which we don't really need to. So I would say it's going C tier. We have Lost Prayers, crit rate as a substat, which is super good. And then the passive is gonna give you some elemental damage bonus, which is pretty good too. You're probably not gonna have the like full 4 stacks. You're probably gonna have like 3 or something like that, because you're not gonna stay on field for like a super long extended period of time with Neuvillette. But it's definitely still a pretty good weapon. I would say it's probably S tier 2. Actually, you know what? I would put it at A tier. The damage bonus is not really as much. And again, you're probably, I'm not sure about that, but I would guess you're probably not going to have the 4 stacks, because how long is that going to take? 8, 16 seconds? Yeah, probably not. You're probably going to have like 3 or 2 stacks. So at Refinements 1, that's going to be 24% elemental damage bonus, which is not really like super good. It's definitely good, but it's not like S tier material. So I'll just put it at like very high A tier. If you have refinements on it, it's definitely going to be S tier, but at refinements 1 or 2, I would say it's like higher A tier. Memory of Dust is just attack and then more attack from the passive. To be honest, it's pretty much useless, so I'll just say it's D tier. We have Jade Falls, Splendor, HP as a substat, which we're gonna need. It's pretty good. The passive is gonna give you 12% elemental damage bonus, which is not really as much, but it's pretty cool. And it's gonna give you some energy, which is also pretty good. Pretty decent. I would say the elemental damage bonus is not really as much, but it's gonna give you HP, so I would put that A tier. Wouldn't really think it's S tier material because there's not really much going on here. No crit, not much of, you know, elemental damage bonus, but the HP HP and the energy and stuff like that are going to be cool, so I would say it's an A tier weapon. Everlasting Moonglow, also the same amount of HP as a substat. The passive is just heal and bonus, and then normal attacks damage bonus, which you're not going to need, and then some energy if you use your normal attacks, which you probably won't, so I would say it's kind of a useless passive unless you want to get some energy and use your normal attacks, but that's going to like mess up your rotations, so probably don't do that. I would say it's like higher B tier just for the huge amount of HP. Other than that, there's not really much going on. Gyra's Verity crit damage is a substat. It's also a huge substat. The passive is pretty much just elemental skill damage bonus, which is cool on Neuvillette, but he's not really going to be using it as much. So yeah, you're never going to gain 3 stacks, which means you're not going to gain the elemental damage bonus from this weapon. But again, for the crit damage, it's still usable. So I'd say it's B tier too. 1000 Floating Dreams, elemental mastery is a substat. And then if you have characters on your team which are different elements than Neuvillette, so you're probably going to have like 20 or 30% elemental damage bonus depending on which team you're playing. Some of his best teams are going to be different elements, like if you play him in like an electro charge team or something like that. But you might want to play him with like double hydro, so it depends. But usually, yeah, 20 or 30% hydro damage bonus, that's it. Some elemental mastery, but it's not really that important for Neuvillette. So I would say it's a decent weapon, but nothing really special. I would say it's B tier too. We have Celestial's Remembrance. Crit damage is a substat, but it's not quite as big as the Gyra's Verity. The passive is just normal attacks damage increase. You're not going to need that with Neuvillette. You're not going to be using your normal attacks. So I would say it's a B tier weapon too, just for the crit damage. It's probably lower B tier 2 to be honest, because like the Widsith or the Blackcliff are going to give you more crit damage. So yeah, I'll just put it at low B tier. We have Cash Flow Supervision. That's Risley's signature. Crit rate is a substat, and then the passive is going to increase your attack. We're not going to need that. And then it's also going to increase your normal attacks damage and also your charge attacks damage, which is the most important thing. You're probably going to be able to have the full 3 stacks, so it's going to be pretty decent, you know, a pretty decent charge attacks damage increase, and then crit rate as a substat, so I would say it's cool. I would put that like A tier. Yeah, I'd say A tier is probably the place. And finally, we have his signature weapon, Tome of the Eternal Flow. A huge crit damage substat, and then it's going to increase your HP from the passive. It's going to give you pretty much the same charge attacks damage increase as the Cash Flow, but it's just also going to increase your HP, and then it's going to give you some energy, which is pretty good. You're going to need some help with your energy, so this weapon is just going to provide it. So yeah, definitely the best weapon for him. It's going S tier. I mean, it's very close with like the Cash Flow. The Cash Flow just falls in because there's no energy, and it's going to give you attack, which is just completely useless. Also, the crit rate substat is not as big as the crit damage substat on the Tome of Eternal Flow. That's why I think Cash Flow is A tier, but you know, his signature is definitely S tier. Well, as it should. So yeah, as you guys can see, his weapons, it's not really that free to play friendly, to be honest. You have options. If you have like the battle pass for the you know, sacrificial jade, it's gonna be a pretty decent weapon on him. But other than that, even if you have like a couple of 5-star weapons, most of them are not really gonna be super good on him. So he has pretty like specific weapons. Completely free to play options like the prototype Amber are not gonna be like super good too. So yeah, he's definitely not like free to play. But I would say it's manageable, you know, it's not too bad. If you have the battle pass weapon, you can have pretty good results. But yeah, that was the video, guys. There are gonna be more Neuvillette videos, so make sure to subscribe, and see you guys in the next video. Peace.